Hello, welcome. Today we are going to talk about the complete guide to hiring your first employee. Congratulations. This is a milestone in any business owner's life. I'm sure that up until now, you've spent many hours, days, weeks, months working by yourself, wearing many different hats. And so the idea that you could potentially have some of that relief that you've been begging for, that your life needs, that I'm sure your family members, your social life, whatever it is that you do outside of work, I'm very excited that you've made this step to getting an employee to be able to alleviate that load and be able to level up your business, because that's no small thing. Many businesses don't make it out into the employee world. Be very happy and be very excited that you are here. If you are new here, my name is Taylor Darcy with Think Legal, and I help you, entrepreneurs, small businesses, startups, create the business of your dreams. So please, welcome. I'm excited to be here. If you have any comments, please leave them below, and don't forget to subscribe and like if you've gotten value out of this video. And let's get started. The hiring process should begin months, maybe even years before you actually need somebody. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be that long, but it should be long enough that you do it right and you don't make some of the mistakes that a lot of new business owners, you can hire too soon and then end up having to fire someone. And the old adage of hire slow and fire fast should be at the forefront of your mind for decision making when it comes to who you're hiring. The slower you hire, the more likely they will be a good fit, and the more likely that you will avoid any of the red flags that or other employees will give you. And you're going to get the better candidate because you've been patient. And the better candidates are going to rise to the top. So it's not just as simple of what's good for you, but it's also what's good for the candidate. Remember, it's got to be a symbiotic relationship. It's got to be something where you both are equally benefiting from it, or you're not likely to have them for very long if it's too one-sided on either side, right? If the employee is taking advantage of you, you're going to end up firing them. If you're taking advantage of the employee, they're going to end up quitting. There's no way around that. So keep that in mind as you're making hiring decisions. One of the very best things that you can do to make sure that your hiring decisions are solid and that you're attracting the right type of talent is to make sure that your company culture is top notch, beginning on working on your leadership skills, your management skills, and making sure that you are a good boss. There are many employees, I should say, there are many employees that, but for a bad boss, they would have stayed. You want to make sure that you are doing what you can to enable your employees to be the best employees possible, which is contrary to what a lot of business owners think. They think that the employee should just do whatever they're told and that there doesn't need to be any of this extra stuff. The problem is it's a very short-sighted way of viewing employer-employee relationship. You're going to have a much higher satisfaction of employee that feels valued, feels like they're part of something rather than just showing up to punch a clock. Whenever you're looking at that type of scenario, make sure that you're focusing on yourself and being the best boss that you can be and the best employer that you can be. And so that's why I say this starts long before you are looking to hire someone, because you want to make sure that you are the type of employer that somebody wants to work for. Because if you're, rude, mean, if you don't value your employees, then they end up leaving, and it just costs you tons of time and money and training for them to like you. So that's number 2. Number 3, you want to draft a job description. It needs to be current. It needs to be something that is based on the need for the current position, whatever that may be, and is based on current realities. What do I mean by that is that as technology changes, your needs as a company may change. So if you're using a job description, and I'm being very, funny here. If you're using a job description from the 1950s or even the 1990s or, the early 2000s, you're going to be attracting someone that may not be the right fit for your company at this time. Okay. So the idea being that you want to avoid something that's so past due that you're risking getting not the best talent. You want to get current talent, whoever that may be. And that's why it's very important that when you're drafting the job description that you're using non-discriminatory language. Avoid phrases like, or coded language like that could be misconstrued, such as young or vibrant, or other type of language such as native English speaker. Something that has no reflection on their ability to do the job, unless it's, and there's always an unless, right? There's always something that it could be. Unless you are hiring for a translating position where that is an essential key function of that job. So if you're hiring someone to be a translator, say a Spanish translation, ASL, then obviously that's a skill that's required for that job, and they need to be fluent in both, right? Whether it's ASL in English or English in Spanish or English in Russian, whatever it is, yes, that is acceptable. But if it is not related to the position, then you need to avoid language that could be misconstrued or that could be considered discriminatory. That's number one. The next thing, and again, this is why it is so important that you do this before you're hiring or before you need to hire. And I know you're sitting there thinking, well, I've got so many other things to do on my plate. How can I possibly find time to do this? Well, so there's a couple of ways to get around that, and we'll talk about that in just a second. The first is do a little bit a day. Block out a half an hour of your time, which I know can be very, very precious, half an hour of your time, and just sit down and start doing these things, right? And then if you don't finish, cut it off and keep going, right? Cut it off and do it tomorrow. If you do that every day for a week, you're going to have, 2.5 hours worth of time on it that you wouldn't have had otherwise if you just keep putting it off. So this next one is draft an employee handbook. Now, some of this stuff you can pass off to an attorney or CPA if it's related to money, bookkeeper, thing of that nature. So it doesn't necessarily have to be you. You can also outsource a lot of HR tasks. There are HR companies out there that will do this work for you. Okay. So don't feel like that you have to do everything yourself. You truly don't have the time, and you're profitable, and it's going to be shorter. You need someone quicker than what it'll take you to get. So you want to draft an employee handbook. And part of that is that you're going to want to make sure that you have clear and consistent policies and answers to employees' most frequently asked questions. Time off, everything that goes with that, sick pay, benefits, everything that you would want to know as an employee, you should put it in that employee handbook. Now, I need to caution you that you need to make sure that you're not using any type of language that would imply a contract. For instance, don't discuss probationary period, such as 90 days. That implies after that 90 days that they have some sort of implied contract. You need to make sure that it is consistent in big, bold, crazy underlined print that all employment is at will unless there is like a contract, an actual contract signed and written and drafted agreed to by the parties. Okay. It needs to be very clear that there is no contract that is strictly at will if the position requires it, right? Some positions you may want to have a contract for, but you run the risk that can bring about disputes and issues later. So that's my caution on that one. So keep that in mind, is that your employee handbook is set clear policy, clear expectations, answers to frequently asked questions, have it in written format, or rather like paper format, and also have it in digital format on like a company intranet so that they can refer to it often. So they have a copy at home and they have a copy on the intranet, and make sure to update it. This is key, absolutely key, that you update it consistently and on a regular basis. Don't let it go years in between updating, because as your company changes, you want to make sure that your employees are kept informed of those changes, because that's part of being an employer. That's part of having that open, honest dialogue with your employee. The next thing you're going to want to do is draft an offer letter that is consistent with the job description, and to make it clear that if applicable, again, this comes back to what type of position it is, that it is an at-will position. It is very crucial that you make sure that there is no misconstrued that this is any type of contract position if it is in fact not a contract position, nor will it ever be, that it is strictly at will. So the idea being that you can hire or fire anybody for any reason as long as it's non-discriminatory, as long as you're not doing it out of spite or retaliation for a complaint. So you can hire and fire, right? That's the nature of the at will as in those instances, but you can't do it discriminatory or in retaliation. Those are the things that you can't do. You want to also make sure that you're recruiting different platforms, internet, word of mouth, recruiting companies, a wide variety of resumes from a wide variety of sources. That way there's no misconstrued or could be an issue with where you're getting your employees from. That'll give you not only the most diverse opportunities, but you truly can get who will fit best for the position as opposed to who just might happen to be recommended. Now, if someone comes recommended, sure, you want to make sure that you're opening to all of your potential avenues, but you don't want to focus on just one avenue. You want to have multiple avenues so that the best candidate can win. And I mean, as well, you should want the best candidate no matter who they are. You're going to have a better employee-employer relationship if you have the best candidate for that position. Next, you're going to want to have all candidates are going to fill out, all candidates are going to be interviewed, I should say, are going to complete an employment application regardless of their resume. And what does this do? This gives you additional information. And it kind of helps you see their attention to detail, right? It helps you see how much they care things. I swear, whenever I filled out an employment application before, it's always been like how tiny the boxes are relative to the amount of information that you can fit into it. And it always drove me nuts. But the idea being that you want to make sure you're getting complete information from people. Now, sometimes if I could take it home with me, I'd fill it out, type it, and take it back. Now, that's back when I was, much younger. Typewriters existed. Or I would, now I would use an Adobe, to fill it in. And that way it would come out looking nice. And, especially if maybe perhaps handwriting is an issue. So consider that. But give applicants a variety of ways of filling out the application, online, in person if they so choose, after we're out of this pandemic. But keep in mind that you want to get this complete information. First of all, you want to have prior employers, including dates of employment, positions held, names of supervisors, and reason for leaving. Is the applicant, and these are the questions that you're able to ask without being considered discriminatory. So these are very key. I'm going to read them because it's easier to read so that it's clear than to try to paraphrase them for you. Is the applicant legally authorized to work in the United States? Does the applicant have reliable transportation? Have they ever been fired or asked to resign in lieu of firing? An authorization to check for references, make sure it's signed along with the references. An acknowledgement the job offer will be contingent on passing a background check if you're performing a background check. That's key. Make sure that the job application, again, it reiterates that it is an at-will employment. Can't stress this enough. And finally, last but not certainly least, certification that all information is true and correct, and that if any material information is falsified or omitted, the candidate will not be eligible for employment, or if they are hired, will be subject to immediate termination. So that's what needs to be contained on your employment applications before. This is why, again, you want to make sure that you're drafting all of these things or having someone do it for you that is familiar with these procedures. Because here's what you need to know. If you do it incorrectly or if you do it badly, all it's going to do is hurt you. It's not going to hurt them. So keep that in mind as you're discussing and thinking about all of these things, that it's all about CYA, right? It's all about protecting yourself in these instances, because the way, especially California works, is that they are much more likely to side with the employee than they are with the employee. California is a very employee-friendly state and not a very friendly employer state. And I tell you that because I want you to make sure that you're proactive about your business and proactive about hiring your employees so that you don't get in trouble and cost you money that honestly you don't need to spend if you can do it and prevent it, right? I mean, it's much cheaper. And I say this in almost all of my videos, but it truly is cheaper. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I cannot reiterate that enough. Like every video, you're going to hear me say that because it's true. In law, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So let's keep going. When you're interviewing a candidate, you want to make sure you're not using any type of coded language, as we discussed already in the job description. I have another video about this that I'm going to point to, but just keep in mind, nothing that could be misconstrued. Ageism, family issues, disability issues. This is why it's very important that you do these things before you actually sit down with somebody to make sure that you've got your questions in the right row and that nothing could be misconstrued or considered discriminatory in any way, shape, or form. And take a step back. It isn't just that you should be putting on a good show. It's that your company should be embracing the values and the diversity of others. The idea of treating others as you would like to be treated is a big thing, and making sure that you're treated well. Taking care of others is only going to take care of you. And that's really what being an employer is about. You take care of their needs, they're going to help you with your needs. They're going to help you get to the next level. You treat them like crap, you treat them like they don't matter, or that, their contribution is lower than should be, then they're not going to be around long. And, it's going to create a vacuum because you might have perfectly good candidates that don't want to come work for you, not because that they're not good or that you're not offering enough money, but if you have a crappy work environment, they're not going to want to stick around. So next thing is you're going to want to pick your top candidates and perform all necessary job-related background and reference checks. Make sure you do these because part of hiring somebody is making sure that you never do a negligent hiring. Negligent meaning that you didn't do your due diligence. So if you need somebody that stands up to scrutiny, if they've got an issue in their background, you want to know about it. As an employer, you want to know that they have a problem or had a problem because they may not be the right fit. They might be the right fit personality-wise, but if you're dealing with sensitive information and they were convicted of something that involves sensitive information, or there's so many issues that I can't even tell you them all. But the idea being is you want to do your due diligence. You want to check those references. You want to check that they have a solid background. Now, in some instances, you're not allowed to do a credit report. There we go. You're not allowed to do a credit report at all, and in some instances you can, depending on the scenario. So it just depends. You need to make sure you're doing that correctly. Next, you're going to want to send that previously prepared offer letter physically and electronically. That way they have a physical copy and electronic copy. It's just the nice thing to do. It's what we're doing these days. Be careful that, people are getting them. That's the big issue is you want to make sure that they're getting them and that they're agreeing to them. And again, it should be based upon your previous things. It should be based upon what you've drafted previously. And that's why it's important that you start this process early. And then last, but certainly not least, you're going to want to have the employee complete the proper onboarding paperwork. Now, I discussed that in another video that I'll point to, but just keep in mind, these are all legally required documents. You want to make sure that they're onboarded correctly, that their I-9 is filled, or their W-4, I-9, all of the different documents that are required by the various government agencies, such as the IRS, the EDD in California. All of these are done correctly and that you can make sure that you're in compliance with the law. Now, again, if you have an outside HR or you have a payroll company, a lot of them will do this for you. So that's another reason, like for instance, in the link below, there's a link to Gusto where you can do your payroll for them through them. And it's per user, so it doesn't have to be crazy expensive. And it gives you the opportunity to really give focus on what doesn't take time away from you. Like payroll is so easy in Gusto. And so keep that in mind. If you're hiring your first new employee, make sure you're doing it right. And that's really what this video is about. If you've gotten value out of this video, or you want to keep in touch and see when I post live, please don't forget to hit subscribe and like, and the bell button to make sure that you're notified when I go live every weekday except for holidays.